Women falling at your feet, the respect of every guy in the room and the world is your oyster. That's the expectation when people look at bodybuilders in the gym. They think their life is surely made. However, the expectation versus the reality couldn't be any different. Over the last year, as I've moved from 210 pounds, which I think generally speaking, the general public still thought that I was a meathead at that weight, up to 230, I've seen my lifestyle change a little bit. Now, I have seen issues with being a bodybuilder in the past, even sub 200 pounds. I saw a lot of people within the workplace would judge me, a lot of people would have preconceptions, a lot of people would think of me in a certain way before they even got to know me. However, this has become even more exacerbated in today's day and age. The expectation is that women will absolutely love you and men might respect you, or they might just want to start a fight with you. But the reality is far, far different in my experience. First of all, can I just say, props to the homosexual male population. The most amount of positivity, respect is probably from those guys. Second is straight men. Straight men just absolutely understand the fucking work that goes into this. They've probably been there. They're probably in the gym because they've got some kind of mental health issue or some kind of trauma in their past that they're trying to work through, get power back over their life. A lot of us are dealing with our own demons, and a lot of us find the gym as a pathway to deal with that. It's not a solution, but it's a pathway to find the solutions or the way that we can manage life to make it bearable at least. But when it comes to women, the story is way, way different than you'd expect. I'm 230. I wouldn't classify myself as too big considering the fact that I want to get to 250. But to the general public, I am a large gentleman. And women seem to have an issue with this in 2022. So for any of you who don't know, I'm a salesman day to day. I've done this everywhere from David Lloyd, a gym chain, a premium gym chain in the UK, through to debt collection, which is ironic given that I was in about 15 grand of debt at the time, through to now where I work in the media sector. Now, I've dealt with preconceptions about myself all the way from my first job in sales, which was at David Lloyd's. I had a general manager and she just fucking hated the men who worked there. She just didn't like the fact that we were happy, or that we were men, or that we were young and attractive. Now, granted, that sounds really salty and horrible, but she was one of those people who, no matter what you did, she'd never be happy. She'd pick a fight for the sake of it. Once every 6 months or so, she'd come in particularly happy, and we knew that was the time where she finally got a male's attention the night before. But that is just generally, I think, somebody you'll come across in the workforce. This issue didn't really become apparent until later into my journey in a recent role, where we had a senior female co-worker of mine. From the first time I met her, she was combative, she was quite cold, she wouldn't really talk to me, she'd ignore me. And this isn't something that I was used to because I've worked within, the corporate world for a decade now probably, and I've gotten used to the fact that, right, I'm into the gym, people are going to view me in a certain way, people are going to think that I'm a meathead, people are going to think I'm aggressive, people are going to think that I have a certain opinion about women, that I treat them a certain way, because of their past experience probably with people who look similar to me. So I built up a defense mechanism after my second corporate job, where about a week in I got an email saying, or I got feedback from my manager saying that I was rude and wasn't appreciative enough of everyone else's work, when I said thank you on every single email for everything they did. That's what they're paid to do. But anyway, I continued. I added a second thanks into every email, and that issue was quashed. And I realized that day, quite literally, you have to put in double the amount of niceness to be seen as a nice person, or to have that stereotype sort of detached from you slightly. This is something that's difficult because everyone has their bad days. Everyone sometimes gets a bit riled up, but you can't really afford to have that as a bodybuilder, because that will just reaffirm everything they already think about you. Now, this happened recently, and I had this woman who was really, really cold, as I said, somebody who was senior within the company, and no matter what I did, she just wasn't warming to me. And then we had a team night out, and suddenly, she was nice, she was happy, she was talking to me, she was singing my praises. Now, this woman had no reason to not like me, really. So why was it that I was seen in this way? Well, I think a lot of people project their own experiences, as I said, with that first manager, onto people who are similar. They'll say, right, well, he looks and talks and is as confident and cocky, whatever, as the guys that I've known before, so he's probably very similar and I can expect the same from him, so they'll shut you down instantly in their minds. This can cause issues, of course. If you're working in a workplace where one of these types of people or somebody judges you in that way is directly above you, you could have some real issues, but luckily for me, she was in a different department. But having somebody like that on the board of directors who's judging you not based on your work or how you work or how you are with them, but judging you based on preconceptions can be a problem. And this is the irony of it all. Women a lot of the time will say, well, people judge us just because we're women and we're passed up for opportunities. And I'm not saying that these are equivalable at all. It's a whole nother debate that I don't want to get into. But just because you have a struggle doesn't mean other people aren't judged based on how they look. You get judged as being aggressive. So you can't ever get heated in the workplace. The few times that I've gotten heated in the workplace, I'm met with fearful looks as if I'm on a rampage and I'm just trying to give you my point of view and trying to say I disagree with you about something or trying to say this. And it's always seemed like I'm arguing, not debating, or trying to just give input into a discussion. So it does create issues, whether it's from female staff members, and it is almost always female staff members who judge you a certain way, or whether it's social interactions, you having to tiptoe around issues, or having to be extra polite, or not being able to voice your opinion in certain situations because people might see it as aggressive or combative. But when the issue of being a bodybuilder really occurred to me, and it was actually outside of the workplace. I went on a night out to Brighton this year, and it was just a standard night out. We're out for a celebration, and granted, this is, post-pandemic, so I think people are a little bit more socially incompetent than before, especially younger people probably, who didn't get a chance to really socialise before suddenly being able to go out and party. This is the first time I'd really been on a proper night out for a good while, since I've gotten to 2:30. I was 2:10 last time I went on a night out, right? So I'm still sort of within normal person territory. I was expecting for men to challenge me based on how I look to prove a point, or for me to accidentally end up in a fight, or me to get chucked out for no reason because of how I looked. These are the preconceptions you build up. You think, generally speaking, the issues are probably going to come from either the place I'm in or men. No, not the case. 3 separate women on that night started an argument with me. One of which I accidentally tapped, and her drink spilt a little bit. I apologised about 3 times. Apparently that wasn't enough. She wanted me to get on my knees and beg and plead, and I just ended up telling her to fuck off after apologising about another 5 times, can I just say. I literally got to the point where I just said to her, do you want me to grovel? Because that's the only way. Why are you still having this conversation with me? I've apologised. I'm really, really sorry. I was like, look, it's probably just a drunken idiot. Second time, I try and go and grab my mates who are by a photo booth. People are in line for the photo booth. I'm just going to, excuse me, my friends are just in there. I'm just going to quickly, grab them and we're going to go. Yep, another argument ensues, as if I'm some entitled frat bro trying to push in line saying, I own this bar. And then we had a third issue again later on in the night, which, to be honest, I was half cut. I don't really remember. But 3 times in one night, women started arguments with me. And I can't help but develop a theme here. My first female manager, instantly, when I was about 170 pounds, I was small and just didn't like me. And that carried over to the rest of my career there. Second time is I end up with another female manager who just absolutely, just straight away doesn't like me. And I have loads of issues with this. This is going to affect my role. I'm having to work with her directly sometimes, and it just causes a friction. It means that I know any feedback internally from her, and she's in a position of power, it's going to go against me. So I'm always going to have people who are dissenting about me in the workplace. Just to add to that as well, there are other people within the workplace who judge me, right? My music taste shocks people because I like chill music or like Billie Eilish, stuff like that, right? People think that I listen to Metallica solely or fucking Through the Fire and Flames on repeat. Not the case. I'm a sensitive guy, to be honest. I'm a very chilled, sensitive guy who you wouldn't maybe judge correctly based on how I look. And then I go on a night out and 3 women start arguments with me. I'm not trying to say that being a bodybuilder is you're some kind of victimized minority within society and that our struggle is equivalable to anything else. I'm just saying this struggle exists. You will be judged, and you'll be judged on your appearance at a surface level, which I thought was something that we were completely against in the modern world. But then I think this is again a reflection of the separation between the genders in society today. The trend of hating on men has just taken over social media, and as a backlash, men have launched these alpha male shit channels which talk derogatorily about women to try and discredit the fact that women were ever oppressed in the first place, and it just deepens our divides. And this is happening more and more and more. There seems to be real divides that's even starting to split within the genders, and I understand that there are a lot of issues which I feel like have been put under a spotlight, and it benefits the powers that be for us to be a divided society and to be squabbling about ourselves. But I wanted to make this video because I have seen directly the effects that this kind of narrative and this kind of mentality has. And I think it's a real shame because bodybuilders, quite simply, are often more introverted than you'd expect. We're often more sensitive than you'd expect. And usually there's a deep emotional reason behind what we're doing. It's not just for aesthetic gains. You know, sure, there are probably some guys who just blast trying to go to a festival to pick up more women and behave like trash. But there are also guys out there who have deep trauma in their past, who found the gym as a way to work through it and work towards a solution and becoming a better person and taking the power of their lives back into their own hands. You know, I think people underestimate bodybuilders a lot, and the wrong kind of stigma is against them. And honestly, it just baffles me that in a world today where prejudging somebody based on who they are or their choices is pretty much the worst thing that you can do, that you can get you bloody cancelled in society, that it's still fine because A, we're men, and B, we've got some muscle. So if you think that becoming a bodybuilder is going to cure your insecurity, is going to make people think better of you, maybe. Maybe not. Depends what kind of attention you want.